Welcome to New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union. I'm your host, Sean. So there's been some interesting developments today. I watched the Cargill case being heard, which if you don't know what the Cargill case is, this is the bump stock ban that has been pushed down by, well, the Trump administration. So again, Orange Man is not necessarily a 100% good guy. So with that, what happened? Um, Long and the short of the hour and 30 minutes that the hearing was actually held was we don't know. Um, the guy, the attorney for the cargo guy, for our guy, that was pro 2A, pro bump stock ban, didn't really make his case in a couple of ways. Um, the judges that were anti 2A are very much toned into pieces, parts of this amendment or this unjust amendment put down by an unjust entity like the ATF um, basically said that they were worried about the triggering mechanism. There was a point where they asked a hypothetical about a black box if it had a button that caused the gun to fire, and this guy didn't have the chops to actually answer the question. And his sole fight in the cargo case, for this case particularly, was about how a gun works. And that works, except for these people that are on the Supreme Court do not understand anything. And even today, listening to what they were saying, it doesn't seem like even the guys that are supposed to be on our side are actually on our side for removing the NFA. What I mean by that is they're actually saying that they understand banning machine guns. And machine guns are kind of not really, in my mind, they shouldn't be banned. And here's why. We should be able to make parity with the forces we may have to fight against tyranny. And if we can't do that, we have lost a long time ago. And basically, what I saw from all of the judges, including the ones that are supposed to be on our side, said that they understand banning machine guns. Now, one of the judges, which is Alito, he was very much in the 2A court and he was very much uh, informed. But the rest of them weren't, including Clarence Thomas. There was a moment where I don't know if Clarence Thomas was trying to be the devil's advocate or what he was trying to do, but he actually gave some leverage to the opposition to actually oppose us in this case. In my mind's eye, and everyone else's in our mind's eye, this should be that you cannot have an alphabet agency just indiscriminately make legislation or make a law that we all have to adhere to and without going through Congress. And Alito was right on board with that, where he's like, hey, there's a moment here where you're saying these things are banned, bump stock specifically, because that's what the cargo case is about. Um, Unless you're watching the national registry or you're listening to New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union and you're watching the 2A as much as we are, you won't know that this is a law and you broke it and you became a federal criminal. You became a federal felon by having one of these devices just overnight because of executive fiat. That is where I have the biggest problem with this. Machine guns, I could give 50-50 too. And what I mean, I understand why they're trying to ban them because you're spraying and praying. But at the same time, I think we should have that ability to spray and pray, so to speak, because we have to make parity with the people we'd actually have to oppose if it ever got to that point. So that's the sum up of what happened in the Cargill case. So what happened there was we ended up with like, nah, whatever happens, happens. The judges we should be able to count on, if they vote correctly, this could have some repercussions. Did I get the warm and fuzzy that they were going to? No. Um, Kind of fitting for the government as I see it nowadays. More concerning, our brother to the north, because this is a New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union, but it's Black Rifle Operators Union for the entire country and the world, is that Colorado has put a bill forth to ban semi-automatics, or what they call an assault weapons ban in Colorado. And they have the majority to pass it. So if I gave one piece of advice to my brothers in Colorado, even though they call us in New Mexico communists, um, you're about to get dealt with in a way you have no idea with. If you are not buying now to have the weapon, if you don't have it, you're about to be dealt with in a position that you cannot have it. So get it now. Um, they have the votes in both houses for the Senate and the House in Colorado to pass the assault weapons ban. There'd be yet another city, or another state, that is, that could do this. It's unconstitutional. It's not how it should be. But in their ban, it went so far as to say that in the language of the bill, to say you can't hand these weapons down, which means that you would have to surrender them to the government or destroy them on your death. Your family would have to. That means there's no legacy for the Second Amendment in Colorado. That's a big deal. Not just the legacy of this bill, the simple fact that they're trying to ban weapons that we know are 100% legal. We were supposed to make parity with the 2A, with our federal government. You know, I had an argument tonight with a friend, a really good friend, about the Second Amendment and about, he called them military grade weapons. And I would say that in today's civilian world, there is no weapon that we have, even the Kalashnikov style, even the AR style weapons, they are not anything that the military would have. They don't have the capabilities that the military has. They're they cannot spray bullets indiscriminately. You know, I was also educated because after having an argument with the same gentleman another time, I kind of checked out of the political spectrum for a little bit. You've noticed this on New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union, is because I've not been covering as much of the legal standards and stuff that's been going on, because I'm trying to focus us to another direction, and that's building the 2A community and making it better, rather than focus on the negative stuff that's going on in the political circles. Politically, I think we're going to win eventually. Today's Cargill case makes me wonder if we're going to win, only because there seems to be an appetite for people being suppressed by the absolute state rather than actually looking at what the state has actually done. In my humble opinion, there is no one in Washington, D.C., and there is no one that could be elected to Washington, D.C. that could save it. Every one of them have been bought and paid for, and we need to take them to task and get rid of them. We're at a point in life that if you look at what's going on in D.C. and see the writing on the wall, you can see these guys have all been bought and paid for, and they're afraid of the American people, and we need to fix that. How do we fix it? Sorry, I had to get a little bit of water in my mouth so I didn't get sound so dry. Um, how do we fix it? Well, I don't know that voting is exactly 100% the answer. I think we need to make those people that we always saw as our enemy see us as people. We need to talk to them. This person is anti-Trump, he's pretty much pro-Democrat, but he claims he's an independent. And I would say I'm an independent voter. But the reason why I'm an independent voter is because I don't see any side, either one of them, doing anything great for the American people. And that's the problem nowadays. If you look at the situation we're in, we've allowed this cancer to grow, and there is a deep state there that no one's willing to address or deal with. And I mean right or left. If you've watched any of the political commentary, any of the political stances that have come out, it should be a simple lift to say, hey, no, we're all for legal immigration, but we need to close our border because we had almost 2 million people come in that aren't documented and are creating problems here. We have a known person who has actually went and killed a person in Georgia because he wanted to rape her and he couldn't rape her, so he beat and killed her. Now, if this had happened to anyone else, if this had happened in any other stance, this is our George Floyd moment, and yet everyone is dismissing this problem. You know, those of us on the middle of the spectrum, the right, I guess, nowadays, if you look at the political spectrum, because we actually want our country to exist, are now saying, we can't allow this. We can't have this. And yet there's one party, one group of people, and it seems it's coming from Washington in general, that allows this to keep happening. We have people dying. We have people allowed into our country that we have no idea where they came from or what harm they are willing to inflict on our country. And they're allowed to cross the border, get a cell phone, get $3,000 at the beginning and up to 10 grand after that, and shuttle to any city that they want to go to because, well, that's how it seems to roll with the Biden administration. And then they perpetrate crimes and degrade American people, and we're supposed to accept that. I'm not okay with that. And no one else should be either. At the same time they're doing this, they're trying to take away our rights. And anyone who's looked at what they're trying to do consistently, you understand what they're trying to do. They're disarming the American populace, or trying to, so that they can subdue them. And that is a problem to me. And that is why New Mexico Black Rifle Operators even started. It was to stand up and say no. Someone has to speak up. Someone has to say no. And while there are lots of gun tubers that are doing the same thing I am, the problem was there was no one in New Mexico doing it. So I had to. Because if nothing else, I had to say what I believe. We are an American people. We have always been. And with that, we have to be able to stand up even against our government. And that has to stand. And we're at that point where we're having to draw a line and say what is right and what is correct, and our government's not listening. I watch people online, and as much as I like to say I've checked out, I'm still kind of tuned into the political circles. What bothers me is seeing the level of submission in the American populace. Why? America has always been founded on rebellion. Yet we're letting leftist weirdos, we're letting people infect our common vernacular, our common culture, and say that being an American is a bad thing. Why? There isn't another culture on planet Earth that wasn't conquered and didn't take the land that they ended up occupying. There isn't one. Yet we're supposed to pay reparations for stuff that happened in our past. I understand there are inequalities in the United States. There are. Anyone who looks at it and says there aren't hasn't paid attention. The difference is that the race-based stuff that the American government says is happening now and the leftists are saying right now were going away. They were only brought back up after the Obama administration. I was taught, and I can remember throughout my history of life and through my education, that we were supposed to judge people by the character, not the color of their skin. Now we're supposed to look at their color of their skin and all the other woke ideology around them. What do we call it? So we're supposed to check and see if they're gay. We're supposed to check and see if they're trans. We're supposed to check and see if they're some racial group other than white. America is still 70% white. And whether you want to admit that or not, there's still a silent majority there. And there's a lot of majority of those white people that feel some silent guilt for something they've never done. Why is that? It's the culture we've festered around this bullshit that's been going on that makes people look at themselves and hate themselves because of past transgressions that they had no control over. Yet they never perpetrated these same acts on today's society, but they're paying a fee for stuff they never did. And I'm not okay with that. That is the hard, cold fact of where we're at. And this reflects on everything from the 2A to every political conversation we keep having. Why are we having these conversations that have been dealt with? We're not dealing with the actual problems here. We're on the precipice of World War III because of stupidity. And when I say that, we keep funding one side of a war and keep encroaching on places that we were told by treaty not to do that, and yet we're doing it. So why wouldn't Russia respond? I'm not a fan of Russia. I think Putin's the most psychotic dictator that we've seen in a long time, next to President Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping. Sorry, can't pronounce that very well. But the Chinese president is just as bad. He's eliminated everything underneath him to push forward his agenda. And the next phase, if you look at what China's trying to do, they've called up their reserves. They're gearing up for war. Found out today that so is North Korea, because we've empowered the Russian regime, the Chinese regime, and now we have North Korea willing to start a war with South Korea. Now, if you haven't looked at what the political stance is of the American government, we're bound by treaty to defend NATO allies. NATO allies include a lot of places past Europe. Taiwan is kind of ambiguous, but South Korea isn't. If North Korea moves on South Korea, the United States is bound by treaty and bound by policy, basically, to go ahead and fight. So we're about to end a new revolution, a new era, not revolution, new era of American policy. We're kind of bound by treaty to go take care of some people that we were trying to back away from. Now, are we going to do it? If you look at American economics, American demographics, there is no real reason we should be fighting these wars. One of the biggest rubbing points tonight of an argument with my friend, like I was talking about earlier, was that as much as I don't like Trump because of the 2A stuff, he actually stopped every war we were getting into. You look it up. He was trying to pull people out of Syria. No new wars is a big deal to me. After engaging in 20 years of war for no real end game, only to find out that we were fighting these wars to keep the American order or the world order afloat. There's no reason for that. I am okay with being a populist. I'm okay with being called that and being called a nationalist. I am for the American people. We are all for the American people. And what the world does outside of the American sphere is really not our concern unless it affects American interests or Americans in general. And that's how I feel. So I'll leave you with that. Like, share, subscribe. Most importantly, be great.